Hari Om, everyone. Hari Om. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes, Jyoti.
So, today we enter into Sundarkand. So, our Mangala Sharanam chanting will change slightly. We'll go from Kishkinda Kand now to Sundarkand. We'll begin with general Mangala Charana of Sri Ramachartamanas from Balkand, and then we switch to our new Mangala Charana. We'll begin. Om. 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 यन्माया वशवर्ति विश्वमखिलम् ब्रह्मादिदेवासुरा यत्तत्पादं ऋषैव भाति सकलं रज्जो यथा हिर्भ्रमः यत्पादप्लवमेकमेव हि भवाम्बोधे स्थितिर्षावधाम् वन्देऽहं तमशेषकारणपरम् रामाख्यमीशं हरिम्. सुन्दरकाण्ड मङ्गलाचरणम्. शान्तं शाश्वतमप्रमेयमनघम् निर्वाणशान्तिप्रदम् ब्रह्मा शम्भुपणीन्द्रसेव्यमनिशम् वेदान्तवेद्यं विभुम् रामाख्यं जगदीश्वरं सुरगुरुं मायामनुष्यं हरिं वन्देऽहं करुणाकरं रघुवरं भूपालचूडामणिम् नान्यास्पृहा रघुपते हृदये स्मदीये सत्यं वदामि च भवानखिलान्तरात्मा भक्तिं प्रयच्छ रघुपुङ्गवनिर्भरामि कामादिदोषरहितं कुरु मानसं च अतुलितबलधामं हेमशैलाभदेहं दनुजवनकृशानुं ज्ञानिनामग्रगण्यं सकलगुणनिधानं वानराणामधीशं रघुपतिप्रियभक्तं वातजातं नमामि रघुपतिप्रियभक्तं वातजातं नमामि हरिः ओम्. Hari Om, everyone. Welcome to our trek through Sundarkand. Now, we are about to see Raghupati Priya Bhaktam, Vata Jatam Namami. This is the final line of that Mangala Charana. Three Mangala Charana shlokas are there as we initiate Sundarkand. The final of these three are Stuti of Bhagwan Hanumanji. And that last line, Raghupati Priya Bhaktam, very beautiful interpretations are there of that. That Hanumanji is Raghupati Priya Bhaktam. He is the dear devotee of Bhagwan Sri Rama. Means he is the one for whom Rama is best and highest, and therefore he sees Bhagwan Rama as that. The second interpretation is Raghupati Priya Bhaktam, that Bhagwan sees him as his Priya, as his most beloved one. So we see that Parasparam Bhava there. That Bhagwan, you are my beloved, and Bhagwan says, yes, then if I am your beloved, you are my beloved too. There's one beautiful story of one sadhaka that I heard recently. I'm trying to remember what the name of the sadhaka was. But she would always identify herself as that one who belonged to her Lord. So, for instance, say her name was Jyoti, she would say, I am Jyoti of Krishna. And it said at one point, because she loved her Bhagwan so much, I am Jyoti of Krishna. At one point, Bhagwan came and met her and he said, who are you? She said, I am Jyoti of Krishna. She said, Bhagwan, who are you? He said, I am Krishna of Jyoti. That's so beautiful. This is the bhava between Bhakta and Bhagwan. That Bhagwan, if I am yours, then you are mine. And this is the beauty of the interaction we see between that bhava that Hanumanji had for Bhagwan Sri Rama and what Bhagwan reciprocated in Hanumanji. Now we enter into Sundarkand, and it's said that this particular chapter of Sri Ramachartamanas is so beautiful that it is called as Sundara. And the word Sundara means beautiful, right? It's that in Sundarkand, everything is Sundara. And there's one beautiful poem, a kavya that was written that elaborates the spirit of beauty that is seen in Sundarkand. So I'll share this poem. It says, Sundare, so you know what Sundaram means. So just from the words itself, you can figure out the translation as we go along. It says, Sundare Sundaro Ramaha, Sundare Sundari Katha, Sundare Sundari Sita, Sundare Sundaram Vanam, Sundare Sundaram Kavyam, Sundare Sundara Kapihi, Sundare Sundaram Mantram, Sundare Kinna Sundaram. The poem says, in Sundarkand, Sundare Sundaro Ramaha. In Sundarkand, beautiful is Bhagwan Sri Rama. Sundare Sundari Katha. And the story of Bhagwan Sri Rama, the story of Sita Ma's love for Rama is also so beautiful. Sundare Sundari Sita, our Devi Ma, is absolutely beautiful. Everything, Sundare Sundaram Vanam and Kavyam, every part of this, the poetry, the mountains, the forest, the area, everywhere that this prasanga unfolds, it's so beautiful. Sundare Sundara Kapihi, and even the Kapi, means Hanumanji himself, is so beautiful. But most beautiful of all, Sundare Sundaram Mantram. That mantra of Ramanam is absolutely Sundara. And therefore it says, Sundare kinna sundaram. In Sundarkand, what is not beautiful? Just the magnificence that is Sundarkand. Everything is just wrapped in beauty. But the nectar of Sundarkand, see, Sundarkand is like a flower. A flower itself is beautiful. But even within the beauty of that flower, there's the nectar that's held within. So in the beauty of the flower of Sundarkand, there's that rasa, which adds even more essence amidst all of the beauty. And it's said that the nectar of Sundarkand can be found in Goswami Tulsidasji's portrayal of Hanumanji, the protagonist of this kanda. This is why it's that Sundarkand is actually named after Hanumanji himself. They say Anjani Ma used to call Hanumanji a Sundara when he was younger because his virtues were Sundara. His conduct was Sundara. The love with which he served and reveled in Bhagwan Sri Rama was Ati Sundara. And therefore, entire Sundar Kand was named after Hanumanji itself. There are 7 different chapters in Sri Ramacharitamanasa, each one named according to maybe the location of Bhagwan Sri Rama, where he was, or that position, time of life that he was in. So Balkand in his childhood, Ayodhya Kand, Aranya Kand, the different places that he continued throughout the journey of Ramacharitamanasa, Kishkinda Kand, Lanka Kand. So it goes, all dependent on Bhagwan Sri Rama. But Sundarkand is named after Hanumanji because the entire story is the beauty of his character. So we're blessed to be able to enter into this skanda, particularly to study the Mahimas of Hanumanji. So this skanda begins with a proclamation of Hanumanji's formidable character in the very first two chaupais. So we'll chant these chaupais to begin our study of Sundarkand. So it begins. जाम्बवंत के बचन सुहाए सुने हनुमंत हृदय अति भाए तब लगी मोहि परिखेहु तुम भाई सही दुख कंद मूल फल खाए जब लगी आवो सीत ही देखी होई काजू मोहि हर्ष विशेषी यह कही नाई सबन ही कहो माथा चले हर्षि हिय धरि रघुनाथा. So the story begins, Jambavanta ke bachanas suhai, that Hanumanji has now heard the words of Jambavanji. Remember where we left last time, at the end of Kishkinda Kand. Jambavanji had reawoken that potential within Hanumanji. And Hanumanji now stood there ready to take on the goal ahead and leap across that ocean to Lanka. It is said at this point he turned to Jambavanji, doing pranams, and he said, Jambavanji, the journey has been long thus far, but you just hold on for a bit longer. Stay here, Kandamula Palakai. Stay here surviving on roots, bulbs for just a bit longer, but hold the faith. Keep that faith. I will return after beholding our sacred Sita Ma with these very eyes and restore the goal in hand for us. Please, but fear not. I'm going and I will return. To this point, it said he shot forth like the unerring shaft of Bhagwan Sri Raghunatha, destined to reach its target. It's the mountain which his foot was placed on when he leapt forth, relegated down to Patal Loka on the sheer force of his bound. This fourth chaupai very beautifully depicts the scenario as it happens. It says, Dehi Giri Charana Dehi Hanumanta Chale uso ja patal turanta Jimya moghar gupati karapana Ehi bhati chale Hanumana. It says that mountain on which his foot was placed when he leapt off sank down immediately to the nethermost regions, Pataloka, and Hanumanji sped forth as the unerring shaft of Bhagwan Sri Raghunatha. Just the way that it's written, we can feel the intensity of Hanumanji's temperament from the way that Tulsidas depicts and articulates his character. See, even how he's presented in this prasanga now itself. Hanumanji, in this last chaupai we saw, that he is described as the unerring shaft of the Lord. Hanumanji is the arrow. Bhagavan is the wielder of the arrow. The message that we learn here, that the true karma yogi becomes an arrow in the bow of Bhagavan. Bhagavan's vision, means the vision of the archer, is the one that determines the lakshya, the goal. His aim gives that arrow its direction, its precision to hit that target. It is Bhagwan's strength that draws the string of that bow and dictates the velocity and the force with which that arrow will fly. The meaning for us is that we are nothing more than an instrument which our Bhagavan uses to accomplish his work. Means even the work that we're doing is not ours, it's Bhagavan's work. And he will utilize us as that arrow to achieve that work. The direction, the strength, the certainty with which a goal is achieved is totally dependent on the archer who's wielding that bow. Means for us, we have to remember this when we're acting. That the direction, the strength, the certainty with which we will hit our targets are not dependent on us. It's actually Bhagavan that is controlling this whole thing. The difference in thinking of Bhakta and Jnani. There in Yoga Vasishta, Guru Vasishta proclaims Purushena Prayatnena. Only by self effort is anything achieved in this world, O Rama. So Bhagavan Sri Rama has already gotten this speech in Yoga Vasishta. Now see how Hanumanji deals with him. Hanumanji says, forget self effort. Bhagavan, you are doing everything. And the only reason why I have effort is because you are acting through me. So whenever we feel like we can't hold to the strength of a jnani, a feeling Purusha Prayatna has to do it. My Purushartha, I have to achieve, you settle down into the bhava of bhakta. Bhagwan, it's your effort only. You helped me get up today and you helped me to achieve. Everything is yours. We are that arrow in the bow of our Bhagwan. And the trajectory of our life is completely determined by him. And when we hit that goal, it's because he has directed us well. So what do we have to do? The one thing we have to do is keep our dhyanam on him. That arrow has to see if that arrow decides to take over its own path. We don't know where it will go. That arrow has to surrender to the bow and the archer to lead it. All it has to do is remain with that one pointed focus and surrender. This is why in Mundaka Upanishad, this similar Drishtanta example is given there, where it talks about that bow and arrow example. It says, धनुर्गृहीत्वा उपनिषदं महास्त्रं शरं ह्युपासा निशितं सन्धयेत आयम्य तद्भावगतेन चेतसा लक्ष्यं तदेवा क्षरं सौम्य विद्धि. In second Mundaka of that Upanishad, it says, Dhanurgrahitva Upanishadam Mahastram. That having taken that great weapon, that Maha Astra of that bow in hand, furnished with the Upanishads, and fixed into the arrow, which is rendered one pointed by constant meditation. This was our Hanumanji, the arrow that was in constant dhyanam of Bhagavan Sri Rama. In this way, he remained fixed. And Upanishads itself say this is all that arrow has to do. The arrow which remains one pointed by constant meditation. Do our dhyanam on the Lord. And then he will direct that bow. Upanishad mantra goes forth to say now that that one pointedness is there. Draw that arrow with intent fixed on the Lakshya, on Brahman, and come to penetrate the mark of immortality. Next mantra after that goes on. Pranavo dhanusharo atma brahmatallakshmuchyate apramattena vedhavyam shadavattanmayo bhavet. That pranava om, that being the bow, Jivatma, here represented by Hanumanji. That Jivatma is the arrow, and nothing but Brahman itself is the goal. And just as that arrow, when released, hits its target and becomes one with that target, immovable from it, so too, when our Hanumanji shoots forth, irrevocably he will reach that destination and merge in it, become one. What was his destination? Sitama, Shanti, that absolute peace and bliss. In the highest sense, Brahman itself, that was his goal. And he would reach the goal after traversing that ocean. Why? Because Bhagwan was his archer. The moral for all of us here, when we hold so strongly to our own fanatic notions, to our crazy insistence that I am doing this, that I must achieve these certain things, that I have to have control for this thing to happen, for it to play out as it's supposed to. The bhakta and the karma yogi knows that when I surrender to that higher power, only then it will be able to flow through me to achieve that goal. When we let Bhagavan be our archer, then how can our arrow not meet its target? So we always have to remember the sankalpa, the balam, the lakshya and the phalam. The sankalpa, that will within me, that desire of the aim ahead. When I take that vow, I'm going to achieve anything in life. That sankalpa, that balam, the strength to do it. The lakshya, the goal that I'm aimed at, and the phalam, whatever result comes off of that entire action, all of it belongs to Bhagavan only. This is what Hanumanji knows. The karma yogi knows that he is just an instrument which Bhagavan uses to accomplish his own goal. And if the karma yogi works with this understanding, only then we can unhesitatingly take up, execute, master, and then drop that designated task when it is instructed. This act of renunciation is key in all of our transactions in life. And that renunciation comes effortlessly if at the onset itself there's no attachment, either to the task or to the result that's coming. Now, this is a key point, that detachment which Hanumanji had. Many times we have this erroneous thinking that detachment means that I'm not going to do my best. Detachment means if I'm detached from that goal, how will I make sure that it's achieved in the best way? We often have this notion in us. Detachment does not mean that I don't care. Detachment actually means that I have given up attachment to my lower emotions. Attachment only comes when I begin to think how I want this whole thing to play out, why I want this thing to be successful. Then I become attached to ensuring that it plays out the way I want and that the desired goal is achieved. If I'm detached, detachment actually gives me that freedom and the clarity of mind to execute that thing even better. It gives me the ability when I'm detached now, I can just do what's right in the best way because I'm not attached to my own ulterior motive or to my own interest. When I'm detached, I can just say, this is the plan, this is what needs to be accomplished, and I can accomplish it by doing all of these different things. If I have ulterior motives, I'll say, but this one way of achieving it will take a little too much effort. It may achieve it better, but I'm not ready to put that much effort into it. Let's do it this way. It will get achieved in a bit longer period of time, but I won't have to put out as much effort. Actually, the best thing is get it done. If I'm detached from my own selfish motives, I'll say, this is the best way to get it done. Forget me. This is how it needs to be done. That detachment actually helps us to achieve things in the best way possible because we put aside our own attachments to our notions in the middle of it. Detachment does not mean I don't care. Detachment actually just gives mental clarity because now I'm not held down by my own notions. This is the beauty of Vairagya. I just do my best and I let go. So be it. This is why chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita tells us this is the perfect way of acting, actually. It says, Kayena manasa buddhya, Kayena manasa buddhya, Kevalairindrayairapi, Yoginah karma kurvanti, Sangam tyaktva, Sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye. It says, Yogina, that yogi, that yukta purusha, like Hanumanji, how does he act? Kayena manasa buddhya, indriyerapi, kaya, by body, manasa and mind, buddhi, intellect also, indriyerapi, and all my senses. Yogina, that yukta purusha, like our Hanumanji, he performs actions by body, mind, intellect, senses, externally, but remains ever detached internally, abandoning all claim or ownership in the act and whatever result will come. And by this Sangam Artha Atma Shuddhaye. He remains Shuddha, he remains in purity during that act. This is why Bhagavan warns also in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, that 47th shloka, that your right is only to perform the action and never become attached or expectant of its fruit. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Don't become attached to the fruit that will come. Ma karma phala hetur bhuhu. Don't let that fruit be your motive. Remain balanced, knowing that all will unfold as Bhagavan has prescribed, because he is actually the real doer and the real director anyway. You remain balanced. Samatvam yoga uchyate. When we learn to act from there, then hitting that target will become inevitable. This is how Hanumanji was able to so successfully cross that entire ocean and reach his target, Sitama, at the other end. This bhav of relinquishing, of detachment, the only thing that allows that arrow to be placed into that bow and just let itself fly, as Bhagwan has directed. That bhav of detachment, of surrender, is key in our journey in life, because that is where ahankara bends itself. That is where ahankara dissolves and becomes destroyed. Why is this bhava of relinquishment, the sharanagati, paramount in the crossing of this ocean to Lanka specifically? It's because that body of water actually represents body identification. The Vedantic interpretation of that ocean to Lanka, that body of water is the ocean of body identification called Dehatma Bhava. And in our journey, that Dehatma Bhava means that notion that I am body, mind, and intellect. That is what holds us back throughout life. That notion that I am this limited being, when I identify as limited, I cannot identify as infinite. And that notion is what locks me into samsara. In Hanumanji's journey across this ocean now, he will meet with four types of obstacles. These four different obstacles are reminiscent of the four obstructions in our spiritual journey towards overcoming Dehatma Bhava. The four things that come and stop us when we are trying so hard to disidentify and detach from our identity as this body, mind, and intellect. And very beautifully, it's depicted through the story in Sundarkand. Each obstruction that comes to us on our spiritual journey is given here in the story of one being that comes and stops Hanumanji. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll explore what these four are and how they represent the four obstructions in our spiritual journey to overcoming this BMI identification. So today I will briefly summarize what the four are so that next week we can go in more detail into each one. So I'll give an overview. The four obstacles, the first one was Mainaka Mountain. That'll be the first to come. Mainaka Mountain was a friend of the wind god, means Hanumanji's father. And she knew that Hanumanji was about to go on this very long journey. And after the first phase of it, she said, why not give him some rest so that he can replenish himself to achieve the goal with greater strength? So she arose out of the ocean and said, Hanumanji, please rest now. Take some rest, rejuvenate, and continue on your journey. This represents the first type of obstacle that comes in life. Even a well-wisher can present obstacles in our life. Even Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya ji in Sadhana Panchakam warns that. He says, save yourself from the kindness of others, because even that kindness sometimes can slow us down. So this is the first obstacle. Positive things in our life can even be an obstacle. We have to have the sukshma buddhi, that subtlety of vision, to recognize when even a good thing can still be an obstruction. So this is the first obstacle that we'll see. The second one, as he goes along, is Sursa. Sursa was the serpent that comes out of the ocean and tries to eat Hanumanji. And this serpent was actually sent by the Devatas to test Hanumanji and see if he would be the one who could achieve this goal. Surasa represents an open obstruction, means an obstruction that presents itself as an obstruction. The first one was presenting itself as a well-wisher, as something positive. This is the first one that actually shows itself, I am trying to stop you on your spiritual journey. So this is second phase, second category of obstructions in our spiritual life. Those that come up and say, stop, I'm not going to let you go any further. But the mindset with which we need to see this, actually the Devatas had sent her. That every obstacle that comes in our life is sent by Bhagavan only. Then we can see the sattva in that obstacle. And instead of fighting it, we can sublimate it nicely. So we'll see how Hanumanji sublimates this second type of obstacle. The third one, Simhika. Simhika is a demoness that hid under the ocean and tried to stop him from hiding itself. Means Simhika reached up and through Hanumanji's shadow, she grabbed a hold of the shadow and started to pull him down into the ocean to stop him. Hanumanji felt himself slowing down and said, what's happening? I'm not going forward, but no one is holding me. I don't see anything on my body. How is it? What's obstructing me? Simhika represents the hidden obstacles. Surasa was an overt obstacle. She showed herself. Simhika is the hidden obstacle that come to us in our spiritual journey. She held on to his shadow and pulled him down, not him himself. Means there are obstacles that will act through others around us, through our attachments, through our loved ones, and attempt to bring us down through other means. We have to be aware of these type of obstacles, hidden obstacles also. These are the worst type. And we'll see in that prasanga how Hanumanji deals with this type of obstacle in his journey. Very important, this particular one. And the fourth and final obstacle which Hanumanji will meet, Lankini. Lankini was the demoness that stood at the doorway of Lanka. The goal having almost been achieved. He's actually landed, he's crossed the ocean, he's made it across. Now just to find Sita Ma. Hardest part is over. And Lankini is there, blocking his way. Means that the final moments of our goal, when we think we're almost there, some small thing will crop up. How do we deal with that when it comes? And many times that obstacle comes from inside itself. The other three we can see as external obstacles. This one we can see as the internal obstacle in our journey also. That at that final moment when we think, I'm almost there, I've almost done it, what happens? Even if we've surrendered to Bhagavan through the process of that entire spiritual journey, at that last moment when we think, I'm almost there, I've almost done it, that's the time when ego tends to act up. Look at what I've been able to achieve. Throughout the whole thing, we're so nervous that it may not work out that we are, Bhagavan, 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 you help me, you make this thing happen. We surrender very nicely throughout. But when we can see the goal in sight, and we know, I'm almost there, Ahankara now acts up. No more Bhagavan, Bhagavan, make it happen. Now I'm going to achieve. Look what I have done. This is what we have to be careful at the final moment when we've done so well all throughout. Bhagwan, I will continue to surrender to you even at that last moment. We'll see beautifully how Hanumanji deals with this final obstacle. He maintains his poise and he actually gives satsang at that point. And at that point, when mind begins to act up, we have to drown it in satsang only. Keep reminding yourself of who the actual doer is. So these are the four main types of obstacles I've just briefly went through. We'll go through each one in detail next week or the weeks to follow and see how these four types of obstacles represent the current when we try to overpower that anatma identity as this body, mind, and intellect, the fueler of our samsara. Each of these obstacles actually represents a different guna. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamo guna is what is represented. These four obstacles are combinations of sattva, rajas, and tamu in four different ways. And through the journey of Hanumanji, we're going to see how to overcome the gunas in our life. We're going to see how with certain ones he interacts very calmly. With other ones he will sport, play with them almost to overcome them. Some he will destroy outright. But the ultimate fact is that in whichever means that he deals with these three types of gunas, ultimately he transcends them all. That is what this epic shows us. How to transcend the gunas in our life. Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, we have to become gunatita. Chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga, where absolute knowledge, Sankhya is given there. The highest knowledge is transcend all of the gunas. And that is what that overcoming of Dehatma Bhava is. It's transcending my identification with body, mind, and intellect. And the only way that presents actually is through the gunas. Remember, from Brahman came Brahma Ashraya Maya. And from Maya, this entire universe was projected. So everything is Maya. What is Maya? Trigunatmika Maya. The three gunas. Atmika. Maya's nature itself is only those three gunas. And therefore, this entire creation is a projection of these three gunas. That's all it is. So every obstacle I meet is nothing but a combination of the gunas. We have to learn to raise our vision to see obstacles in this way. Chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita says, Devi Hesha Gunamayi, Mama Maya Duratyaya. That this divine energy of mine, Bhagavan says, it consists of the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamu Guna, and Mama Maya Duratyaya. Extremely difficult it is to cross. Crossing it means like an ocean. This is the ocean that we're attempting to cross in life. This is the ocean that Hanumanji is showing us how to cross. And all the obstacles that come in life are in the form of this Maya, only some combination of those three gunas at its core. When we can see at the level of the gunas now, only then we can become gunatita. Only then we'll know how to transcend them. And the next half of that shloka in chapter 7 says, Mam eva ye prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. That surrender to me. And only in surrendering to me, as Hanumanji surrendered to Bhagavan Sri Rama, Maya metam tarantite, then you will cross very easily. Why? Because when you hold on to the archer, you're holding on to the one who has control of where that arrow will end up. When you hold on to the wielder of Maya, Upanishads say, Mayam tu prakritim vidyam, Mayinam tu Maheshwaram. Maheshwaram, that Bhagavan is Ishvara, he's the controller of that Maya. And only he can control and deliver you to that goal. So the thread that we've followed throughout this beginning part of the Katha is being that arrow in the hands of Bhagavan, being the arrow in Bhagavan's bow, for which Bhagavan himself is the archer. Only when we can surrender, then Bhagavan can direct our course. And we have to surrender because Bhagavan is Maheshwaram. He is Ishvara of Maya. Jivas are Maya Dasa. We are the servants of Maya. Ishvara is Mayapati. He is the controller or the equal, the one who can, what's the pati? It's one that you see as your equal and they can work together in tandem. In this way, Bhagavan utilizes Maya as he needs. Us as jivas who are Maya Dasa, how can the Dasa control the master? How can the servant control the master? All the servant can do is surrender to the master. Then the master will have compassion on the servant and utilize all of the faculties available to him to make the life of that servant as easy as possible. In this way, that Sharanagati, that surrender, is what will deliver us that goal that we're trying to achieve. And we will see this and how this is achieved in that crossing, in overcoming obstacles through the three gunas. So, this is what we'll enter into. next week. So I won't go further because now each one we'll have to take separately and explore. This is a very beautiful part of Katha. Most of our Katha thus far has been bhakti oriented, a lot of beautiful bhava and messages, small messages that we can take in different parts. Siddhasya lakshanani, sadhakasya sadhanani, different sadhanas that we can take up. But this second part actually almost gives a roadmap to life. It's a bit more of serious study because we go into the nature of the gunas, the type of obstructions, and a plan that Bhagwan has set out as to how to master each of these four types of situations in life. Slight bit of more serious study we're going to enter into from next week. But enjoy because it's a different way of seeing this process unfold. So we'll conclude here and see you again next week. वीरमारुते गम्भीरमारुते वीरमारुते गम्भीरमारुते वीरमारुते अतिधीरमारुते घेतमारुते सङ्गीतमारुते दूतमारुते दूतमारुते भक्तमारुते परमभक्तमारुते वीरमारुते गम्भीरमारुते 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 पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ हरि ओम everyone.
Hari Om. Thank you, Professor.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om Jyoti ji, thank you.
Hari Om Jyoti
Hari
ji.
Om Mama. Hari Om. Oh, Geeta Amma is there. Hari Om Mama. I didn't see you.
Yeah, I listened.
I missed you. I don't know how I didn't see you. Hari Om. How are you, Amma?
Hari Om Jyoti ji, thank you again.
Hari Om Analanko.
Hari Om.
Hari Om Jyoti, thank you. Wonderful listening to you.
Thank you, Hari Om.